Welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about the new operations to make sets useful. So until yes 2025, sets only had 4 methods that we just learned about: has, add, delete, and clear. So sets were really that useful, and actually I have never used them personally for anything. But now that's changing because in years 2025, sets got 7 more methods, which makes them a lot more useful, especially when we used together with arrays. And also these methods bring sets more on par with sets in other programming languages, where they are actually an important data structure. So let's briefly now look at some of these new methods in this lecture, and we are going to use two data structures that were present in our starter code. So you can find them up here. Let me just show you. So these are the things you can find in our starter files, or you can simply just write by hand, or you can just copy from our starter files and just copy these here. Now we'll experiment with these new methods. So these new set operators. So first of all, let's say that we have an application that contains these foods, so some Italian foods and some Mexican foods, and then in that application we needed to find out which ingredients are present in both of the Italian and the Mexican cuisine. So just by looking or reading the code, here we see the tomato, and for example it is present here and here, right? So both in Italy and Mexico, tomatoes are the common cuisine, and so it is same is true for example the garlic also, of course. But we want a programmatic way of finding these common elements in two sets or maybe in two arrays. So let's just use the first new method, which is intersection method. Let's just create a variable called common foods. Okay, here we write that constant common foods. Here we are setting this into Italian foods dot intersection of Mexican foods. And now we'll just log this into the console. As you can see here, from these both, here we got tomatoes and garlic. So that's Mexican food in this case. So basically what we'll do is find again the intersection between this set and this set. Okay. And we could have also specified them in other words. We could have called Mexican foods intersection Italian foods. So that order here really doesn't matter. So the result of this intersection method here is a new set which contains only the elements. They are present in both of the sets. So again, they're going to be here tomatoes and garlic, and maybe some others too. So let's see what we got. So let me just copy these both again, paste it here, and then here instead of Italian foods, here now I'll use here Mexican foods. Here instead of Mexican foods, I'll use. So let me just turn this off for now. As you can see, same output for this one and this one here, tomatoes and garlic, because they are only the both common here. So intersection basically using this here as a label. So later we will know what is what actually in our output. Then here are the common foods. Let me just say here console.log common foods. We are here using this operator. Then you can see here the tomato and garlic. Now here with the set with the tomato and garlic here, so exactly the two ingredients we have already identified. Now what if we wanted an array out of this? Well, that's pretty, because as we have learned about the spread operator, we can just create a brand new array just like this here, like using the spread operator. So here we spread all of the elements of sets like this into a new array, and so then we get exactly an array of tomato and garlic. So in fact, this is extremely useful when working with arrays, which is a way more common data structure than sets. So many times in our application we are working with arrays, not with sets. But as you have already know, we can easily convert arrays to sets and sets to arrays. So finding the elements that are common in two arrays is actually pretty common task. So before these new set operations we were added to make sets, we can simply use the intersection method like this, and all we could have done is, if we do some arrays, would be converted them into a new sets like we have here above. So these are arrays and they have been converted as sets by calling them a new set like. So just as we learned, this is pretty useful, and the same is true for our next method, which is called the union method. So this one gives us all the elements that are present in either of sets, or in other words, all the elements on both sides without any duplicate. Of course, let's just create a new variable. So here we are just creating the new variable constant Italian and Mexican fusion. So here I'm setting this to Italian dot foods. Dot, here we are using the union, and here we will say Mexican food. Here we'll console.log. Let's just say union. Yeah, here we got our output now. You can check. So here we have the union, and let me just say here so here intersection, this is union. So in union, see right now here we have 10 sets. So by combining all these, here we have tomato and garlic, right? So excluding them, they are multiples here in the both cases. So instead of 12, here we are getting only 12 entries here. So it just basically combines everything into one set. This one combined here into one set. Okay, but again without any duplicate. So here we do Italians foods dot union, right, and then pass in into the Mexican foods. But it could also be the other way around. Just one thing I didn't mention earlier is that you need a latest browser to get these outputs. So in the latest versions only, these sets operations works only in the latest browser. It won't work in the previous. So in our output we got everything, but of course tomato is only present once, and also garlic, because remember how sets are unique. So all the elements in there must be unique. So in this case there would be another way of achieving this. Maybe you can try this as a challenge. So if all we want to do is now to combine two arrays and then get their unique values, which basically is so what the union does is we can do in another way. So we can just create a brand new array and then spread both of these arrays in there, as we have already know a little bit about it. So let me just show you that how to do that. So here let me just write console.log. So here I'm using array operator, right? So in this I'm saying Italian foods, and then here I'm saying Mexican foods. As you can see the output, so these both arrays were created. Here we got 12 values, and now here we are going to make them here the new set. Now you see here the both the values are the same. So creating this method or this method. So basically we just did this with the arrays. So as you can see here, both the output same. It doesn't get repeated here. It gives only tomato and garlic once. So this method is not most useful one, but next one is again a bit more useful, which is difference method. So the difference method gives us a new set which contains of all the elements that are present in the first set but not in the second one. So basically this gives us the elements that are unique in the first set. So let's do that. So let's just say here the constant. So constant unique Italian foods. Italian comma. See now the difference. So basically here it is just comparing this first one with the second one, and it is giving the only the first set, and it is removing the common elements in the both. So here the tomato and garlic was removed, and then here we are getting the set of 4, which is the difference. So now let's just do the same with the Mexican food as well. So let me just copy this and paste it here instead of Italian foods. So that's how we get the difference. So now in this case we are comparing the second one with the first set. So, and also here basically again tomato and garlic were common in this first set as well, right? So in the second set it removes tomato, garlic and just print out the remaining 4, as you can see the output here. By the way, if you know anything about mathematics, all these operations also exist in mathematical sets. We can do the same with the Mexican food as we did here, and also with the Italian food here. Okay, so all of these operations are actually mathematical operations that exist in the sets in mathematics, and so we also see some in Venn diagrams. So let me actually show you that here. MDN sets here I'm going to show you. So right now, as you can see here, these are the diagrams, Venn diagrams, as you can see here. So right now for difference, as you can see, it is just showing here, right? So part A and part B, and this is the common area. Let's see the difference. We just worked here with this diagram. So imagine they are all the Mexican foods and this one all the Italian foods. So this is the intersection, okay? And so that means the tomato and garlic are right here, and then we have the union, as you can see here, this union, so which is of this together, everything here, okay? Where then we have difference in this case is only all foods that are in Mexican but not in Italian, just like this one, right? So next up we have a pretty similar method which is called a symmetrical difference. As you can see here, we have this one gives us all the elements that are present in either the sets but not in the both sets. So basically this is the opposite of intersection method. So if you think back to the Venn diagram, then this will basically give us the parts. So left circle plus the right circle but not intersecting. So this will give us the unique Italian foods plus the unique Mexican foods. But there is a use case in some situation, in some applications of these operations. That's why they are added to the language. So just to show you, constant UN unique Italian and Mexican foods. So we are setting this unique Italian Mexican foods to Italian foods dot. Here it should be capital D. As you can see here now, the symmetric difference. So here we are having the from the first set and the second set, basically except this tomato and garlic. So as I have already said, right, this symmetric difference, so it gives this unique values and this gives unique values, but it doesn't fix those unique values. So that's what we got here. So it removed the tomato and garlic. So there are 3 methods, but I'm not going to go deep into them. So the 3 methods that we still have to look at are the methods that we can be used to check whether one of the set contains is the other set. So they are called is subset of superset. So and it is disjoint-from. Now there is no need to waste too much time on these methods here. Let's just use one of them which you can check one of set is completely different another set. So this is called disjoint form. So let me just show you that here. Console.log Italian foods dot is this. See here, we are getting this value here as false. So this will check whether the sets are completely different, or in other words, if one set does not contain any element of other set, so in this case they would be disjoint. Now in this case we already know that they have some elements in common and therefore we get false value, right? But in another nice method, they would nicely use some arrays, but then in conjunction with, for example, if statement or a ternary or some situations, we need a boolean value. And if you want, you can go and check the documentation for this, as I will show you here, this MDN sets. So you can just try out the remaining here, the superset of, isSubset of, and then you can try these examples on your own. Okay, with that, let's just wrap this session. So that's it for this video.